I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everyone. As always, you please turn off your cell phones. I note that we have Commissioner Hanley in the room this morning. Welcome. Our next meeting is December 19th, 9 o'clock here in the Community Center. We'll move to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve. I'll second that.
Okay, I understand there's some comments on the Treasurer's report. Kurt?
Yeah, I was going through the September one, and I just got some questions on. I noticed all the wages were really high at the end of September, way over budget, and I assume that's just due to a pay period ending in the wrong time, or not? It's not working? Okay.
We've actually done the adjustments for that, and what I mean by that is that if a pay period falls in October, but it's paying for any weeks or days in September, we've already done those adjustments.
Well, I guess I'm looking at just all of them were over. Like recreation was over by $2,500 in 1 month. It just seems a little odd. And I thought maybe it's just a pay period in that somehow got screwed up. They're all that way. Code is $1,300 over.
If you remember. Go ahead.
The variances are based on a 12-month interval, meaning if we have 3 pay periods in 1 month, sometimes the variance will go negative versus positive.
You had 2 paychecks in September.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Okay. On page 7, if you want to go there, you show a fund loss of $9,600 of the B fund. What created that?
The state of Florida finally wiped out the B fund, and the B fund has spanned back, I'd say maybe 7 years ago, when the state of Florida incurred many losses, and those losses were transferred to the governments. So what they did, instead of the government's taking a big loss, I think maybe December of 2008, they spread it out over time, and now that fund is it's depleted, and that is our fund loss over all these years, and that's pretty good because the district used to invest anywhere from $3.5 to $3.8 million in the prime funds.
Okay. Does the district have 2 credit cards? Is that what we have? Or do we have more than that? Or
we have 1 credit card, and we have 4 individuals that have those credit cards. But we also have accounts with Office Depot and other accounts, but we have one Chase card.
Well, there's a Chase card here. It said we paid interest of $149. Why would we be paying interest on a credit card?
The bill was paid late, so that was my fault and my department's fault.
So the other interest on the other account would be the same reason?
Yes.
There's another charge on the credit card. It says a training lunch for $123 at the Hibachi Buffet, I think. What was the objective of that meeting, I guess? Who attended?
That was Utilities, Public Works.
This one I just got a problem with. This one is another charge on the credit card for a baby shower for $130. Now, how did the district benefit from that?
Can you tell me the page?
Page 34, halfway down.
That one didn't strike me. I don't remember that one.
Oh, the baby arrangement and get well arrangement. We had an employee that his wife had a child, and then we had an employee in the hospital. So those are edible arrangements that we send to staff.
So we do that for baby showers or birthdays or whatever? Is that normal?
Historically, it's been normal.
I think that's what you say.
What's that?
For births and for people who are hospitalized.
Okay.
And I think we do it occasionally for guests, too.
All right, the last one on September is the amount of money we pay to the golf course for maintenance. We kind of average, about, at least in the budget this year, we're averaging $6,200 a month. And in July, we paid them $9,700. And in August, we paid them $7,500. It just seems like a little override to me, but...
We were catching up, if I remember right.
What was the page you're on?
45, the bottom.
What's the annualized then?
I can pull the bills for that month and take a look at them.
Okay. In October, oh shoot, I didn't write the page numbers down, but there was in the, I was under the impression that this advertising we're doing through Facebook is kind of like free, but there's charges in here for Facebook. I don't know what that means.
No. A lot of advertising that gets done on Facebook is free, but we have recently started using, like, for some special events. We have been paying for advertising because it's more effective than me putting an ad in the paper or what have you. So we have some ads that we have been using Facebook to, we actually charge, but it drives people to our Facebook page.
Okay. That's it.
You had some questions on the golf?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I've got one for golf, and maybe David Ford. I probably need to get David up here. And looking at the performance notes and the new formatting system, I come across I got a question. Banquet sales are a big part of our total revenue, over $300,000. Is it possible, since it's 1/3 of our total revenue, is it possible to put that marketing and banquet operation in a separate set of accounts so we really know what our that would show our in more detail our revenues and expenses to see whether or not how we're really performing versus what we're charging for some of these things? I think doing so will give us a better understanding of how we're actually performing, and it's a good tool going forward to it looks to me like, because right now it all gets lost in the overall operation of the restaurant operation, and you don't really capture the labor that you use on this and necessarily the food that you use in a separate situation, and the advertising part of it and all that. It just seems to me like it's kind of just lost in all the numbers. Is it possible to do that?
It's something that I can ask and see if we can't break that out through the accountants at Billy Casper, and I will do that. We do break out the revenue. The revenue is separate. You can see that in the line items. I would have to just ask the accountants if they could put something like that for me together. Now, would it be on our financial statements every month? No, but I would be able to provide you with a breakdown, a P&L of each individual event. So
it seems like it'd be something worthwhile, since it's such a big part of our overall revenue.
and it's growing. I mean, we're getting more and more people asking for events. So I would say that it's probably our most profitable venture in the restaurant. That's my my feeling on it. But I can certainly give you P&Ls on each event if you'd like to see that.
Okay. If you can find out, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
David, I found that new format pretty hard to follow. Maybe it was a print, but when I first looked at it, I thought I needed new glasses to get through the thing. I thought we were going to try to simplify so that we get a good, strong taste of what's happening each month in a summary form as well. And you've got enough numbers in the first report that we always get, but what's the reasoning behind this new one?
Well, the new one breaks down each individual department, and you can see the revenue and expenses in each individual department and see how they're doing from a net standpoint, or their contribution from a net income standpoint. And then there's an explanation line where I can break it down line by line and give you an explanation for any major variances one way or the other.
Explanation is good. That part of it's good, but have you ever counted up how many line items we have in those reports?
We have a lot.
Well, again, I've said this several times, but if we can just keep the summary simple so that we can see the big picture.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Is that all for David? Do you have anything else?
I've got another question, but it ties into this resolution -35.
Move on to that. Any other comments from the board on the consent agenda? David, thank you. Any comments from the floor? All right. Kayla, would you call the roll, please?
Supervisor Holbert,
Yes.
Supervisor McCullough,
Yes.
Supervisor Halbig,
Yes.
Supervisor White,
Yes.
President Miller.
Yes. Okay, we're moving on to the action agenda. And again, our 4 resolutions are in reverse form, but so be it. The first one is 2638. That's resolution of the Sun Lake Sebring Improvement District to exempt the golf course and tennis courts from county ad valorem taxation. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Comments from the board?
Second.
Comments from the floor? Bring it back to the board.
I have one comment, sir, before we go further.
Fine.
Tanya informed me that we also pay tangible personal property tax. And typically, if you're exempted from taxation, it's not just the ad valorem tax. You'd also be exempt from payment of tangible personal property tax, which is in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $20,000 a year on the golf carts, things like that. So you kind of got the motion pretty quick before I noticed what had happened. But my recommendation
is... It's the day before Thanksgiving, John.
I understand, sir. That we also include tangible personal property taxation as part of the exemption request.
Okay. We're not going to have any problem by including the tennis area?
I don't think so. Those we would have a problem with the restaurant, but the golf course and tennis courts are pretty much equated in terms of public recreation.
Do you want to phrase an addition to this, Senator?
I'll just say that the title would be a resolution of the Sun Lake Sebring Improvement District to request the Highlands County property appraiser exempt the district golf course and tennis courts from county ad valorem and tangible personal property taxation, and include tangible personal property taxation within the resolution where the exemption is requested.
Do we need any further discussion on that?
I think you need to have the original motion withdrawn and second withdrawn, and then the new motion includes what I suggested.
I'll withdraw the motion to approve.
Who's the second?
I will. Second.
We have to make a new motion.
Yes.
New motion.
Approve as amended. I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution 2014-11-2638 amended as per John's notes on the personal property taxes.
Second.
Okay, do we have board discussion on the amended resolution? Do we have any public comment on the amended resolution? And bring it back to the board? Okay, Kayla, now we can go.
Yes.
Supervisor McCullough?
Yes.
Supervisor Halbig?
Yes.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Holbert?
Yes.
President Miller?
Yes.
Just for the record, sir, I'll send this up after you sign it together with the prior resolution adopted by the board with the operation of the golf course as a not-for-profit entity, and we'll submit that formally to the property appraiser for request for exemption from these taxes.
Okay. All right, next resolution is 2637, and that's approving the purchase of golf equipment based on Billy Casper Golf nationally negotiated pricing. We approved that as a line item, I believe, in the budget. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, do we have any board comments?
I just need clarification. Why do we need to do a resolution on something that's already in the budget and it come in under budget?
This shows the record of your approval of the purchase. Even though it's in the budget, that's not to say that you've approved the purchase. Budgeting is one thing, actual equipment or other purchases altogether another. We historically have done this, and in my opinion, need to continue doing it. And the other thing the resolution documents is the fact that it wasn't bid. It's lower than the state equipment list, and that's why we've approved that. And to have an audit trail for that is very important. So
that's the primary reason, is the fact that it's below. It's a little unusual and a little outside of our normal purchasing, and that way that when the auditors see why we did it, it's there.
Okay. Well, the reason I brought it up because last year we bought a piece of equipment that was $40,000 and it flew through and we didn't talk about it. So what was different about this compared to that? That's all.
State contract.
I understand
the difference.
Thanks.
Any other board comments on this? Any public comments? Bring it back to the board. Final thoughts, comments? Okay, Caleb?
Supervisor Halbig?
Yes.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Holbert?
Yes.
Supervisor McCullough?
Yes.
President Miller?
Yes. Next item is Resolution 2636, and that's to carry forward project costs for certain capital projects not completed during the 2013-2014 fiscal year. Let me get a motion, and we'll go to you. Have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Kane Kennedy, Finance Director. That's the important statement, what you just said. These are the projects that we started before fiscal year, and they were not finished. Because if you remember during the budget process, we did carry forwards for projects that we knew we were not going to start. Number one being the EMS building. We already carried that over, but these are projects that are starting to finish up as we speak. So this is the budget amendment to carry over these projects to the budget year 2015.
We've addressed some of these already, haven't we?
We
like
have.
The front entrance, the carpet, Veterans Monument. Are these funds that still need to be paid? Is that the idea?
Some of them have been paid, but I do have a change to this resolution. I did make an error. The clubhouse carpet is not being paid for out of the general fund. It's being paid for out of the golf fund, out of their capital expenses. So I apologize. That's my error. I'll need to get with John on the. It's not a actual account number, but it's going to be described as capital expenses golf fund.
Okay,
so I want to make that clarification.
Does that call for a change in the title?
I think it does. It calls for a change. That change is being made to Exhibit A, I believe, Tanya?
Yes, sir.
And that you are approving Exhibit A as part of this resolution. So it needs to have that quick amendment to Exhibit A.
So we have to withdraw and then...
Either way, you can that's probably the easiest way to do it.
All right. Whoever made the motion, please withdraw.
That'll teach me.
Make a motion to withdraw Resolution 2636 so it can be rewritten.
Withdraw the second, please.
And I'll withdraw the second.
Okay, now Exhibit A, would you please state what has to be changed again?
Exhibit A, the clubhouse carpet will not be paid from account number 001-540-6250 at the general fund. It will be paid from the golf fund capital expense line item.
What about the front entrance? Wouldn't that be in the same pew? You've got the $5,000 for the front entrance. Remember, they redid that. Wouldn't that be in the same?
That was being paid for out of the general fund. We budgeted. There was some capital costs that we budgeted for the building improvements, and that line item is correct.
And the banquet tables and the service station, that's all?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
General fund, yes.
Okay, we need a new motion then. Don't we need a new motion for?
Just the new motion to approve Exhibit A is modified by her comments is all you need.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Now, board comments? Any of this? Public comments? Back to the board. Kayla?
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Holbert?
Yes.
Supervisor McCullough?
Yes.
Supervisor Halbig?
Yes.
And President Miller?
Yes. Okay, we're down to Resolution 2635. Let's provide funds from the general fund for contingency for payments to vendors or employees not anticipated during the original budget process. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
Okay, board comments?
Yeah, I've got a question, if I'm first.
Whatever, go ahead.
I just jumped in without asking permission. I know I got to watch what I say here this morning, based upon
all
your
right,
comments.
Just get on with it.
I got a question about the how you pronounce Toyo's cleaning service? Toys? Okay. The cleaning service is, what does the resolution say? That went over by $7,700. I noticed in the financials in September there was only a charge for $1,385. The first month of the year is for $2,235. I'm trying to see how we where did this extra $7,700 come from, through what months? And
when we first did the budget, I know the fire department was responsible for setting up for our events on the weekends, and when that went away, we improvised and asked the cleaning company to set up. So the extra amount that we didn't budget for was because of that reason. We didn't know that was going to happen at the time. So on the weekends when there's nobody here to set up, they set up the events for us. So they charge extra on top of the cleaning fee.
Okay, this cleaning service, is it time and material, or is it bid out on a yearly basis? Because the cost runs well over $10,000 a year that we're paying for this service. So I'm just wondering if we just turn them loose and they come in, and after they do the cleaning, whatever it costs, they send a bill. So is that a preset hourly rate? Is it bid out? Or if it's not, maybe it should be, because it's a pretty hefty bill every year.
It's not bid out. It is a preset hourly rate, and we receive a bill each week with the number of hours they spend, depending on if they're just cleaning or if it's setup fee, or if we have multiple events here, their bills are going to be higher in one week versus another week.
We went through how many cleaning companies before we settled on this company? We had several. We had a hard time keeping people in here. We went through 3 or 4.
We went through 3 or 4 different companies before, and they've been with us now for about 18 months?
Yes.
Well, who supervises their efforts?
I do.
You come over and check?
Well, Maria comes over during the week to tidy things up. for the ladies that use the community center, and she lets me know when there's issues, and she does a very good job doing that.
Yeah, I know Maria. Okay.
So you're satisfied that the bills we're receiving are good and valid, and not that they're padded in any way, shape, or form? You know, because when somebody's got a free checkbook, an open checkbook, sometimes it's if it's not monitored correctly, then
they actually
it's a problem.
They actually charge us $125 per event that we have to clean, and that fee is included in the rental cost of the facility. So that right there, I mean, it doesn't matter if it takes them 5 hours to clean or 2 hours to clean. Per occasion is $125. Where the overages happen is when we have to have them set up, on the weekends when we're not here. But I am comfortable, yes, with their bills. I monitor their bills every week when they come in.
Okay, I guess we just got to watch it because I don't know how much we paid. Do you know how much we paid on a yearly basis for this service completely? And how does it? I mean, you're watching it on every bill that comes in to make sure, because a lot of the billing is not $125. It's
well, the cleaning portion is $125, and then per event. They also deep clean the community center once a week because it needs to be done, and then the setup charges as well. But yes, I do monitor that every week before I input the bill. I make sure it balances out with the events that we've had. And
okay. As long as you're satisfied, then yes, I'm satisfied.
And we also increased the budget this year to accommodate for that.
But that cost to the district is over $10,000, right?
Yes.
John, can we do a sole source thing like this over 10?
Well, first of all, let me say this. First, I've heard of any of that. Okay, so that is some concern to me. I think typically what we can do is go out and call for 3 quotes and get quotes. That's what we usually do for matters of this size. Anything that's under 10, the general manager can just contract. And in many places, honestly, that number is around $35,000. I don't know what the county is right now. It might be 25 or 35, but many districts across the state have $35,000 limits. We're kind of still in the dark ages, and I think one reason we're still at 10 is we don't like to go back to the county and request them to modify the charter, and that's in the charter, so that's one of the issues.
Well, we're comfortable with that figure.
It's also variable based on the number of events we have.
Well, if we went out the bid, we don't necessarily have to take the bid with the lowest price, right?
We had a lot of trouble going through cleaning services.
I realize that, but rules are rules.
I understand.
And we just can't say we don't like that because we have a problem getting somebody. And John is there to supposedly guide us through all these potholes. You're uncomfortable with that, aren't you?
Well, before we go how uncomfortable I am, let me talk with staff about exactly what we have and what they've done, because right now is not the best time to discuss that without knowing the background. I don't know how many quotes they have asked for. We don't know a lot of things right now.
All right. Can we get back to that at the next meeting then, please?
I would think so.
Okay. Any other questions?
I got a couple. Code enforcement officer, is he a salary employee?
No.
Okay. Why not? Isn't he a department head?
Historically, he's been an hourly employee, and we looked at that and felt like with our circumstances, the fact he's under a wage an hour, he probably belongs to as a hourly employee.
On the security charge of $8,800 for watch orders and special events, what portion of that is watch orders?
Vast majority. I was talking to Mr. Hurley about that, dear. We underestimated the number of watch orders. We hit a peak of 280. And when you figure an average of 10 minutes per watch order, you're pushing, 3,000 minutes a week. Mike's had to bring in additional people to get the watch orders done.
So this is an overrun from the entire pool, is that correct?
Yes, for the entire year. We just underestimated the number of watch orders we'd get.
And we need to look at that for the current year, too. I'm going to sit down and do some more analysis for security and look at the
It's also
number of watch orders and special events.
One of the most popular things security does for residents.
So that's not in the 15 budget either, so it's got to be.
It is not, no, sir.
We've got some additional hours
yes.
in 15's budget. We may not have enough.
Yes, I agree.
No.
Tanya, I talked to you about this yesterday, but this bothers me that we go to a reserve for health insurance in our contingency area to make up this deficit. We're razor thin in our contingency, right?
We are razor thin, yes.
And that doesn't have to be that way. We should have what I consider a fairly healthy reserve budgeted so that we don't have to go to strange pots to make up this difference.
We changed that for the 2015 budget, so I feel like our contingency is actually set at $131,000. So we've increased that. Okay. So we have corrected that.
Well, I've always had larger contingencies in my experience, but so be it. So we won't see this oddity again.
Correct.
I hope. Okay. Any other board comments? Public comments? Bring it back to the board. Okay, Kayla?
Supervisor Holbert,
Yes.
Supervisor McCullough,
Yes.
Supervisor Haubig,
Yes.
Supervisor White,
Yes.
President Miller.
Yes. Okay, last item on the action agenda is this discussion of assessment methodology, and Mike, I'll have you lead us through this.
This is a situation where, and Ms. Candiday, why don't you help me go through this, where our billing people routinely look at our assessments. And this is a circumstance where we had one property on Angelo Circle that was billed as a single lot, when in reality it was a lot and a portion of an adjoining lot. And we have 3 other similar properties adjacent to this property that are billed as a lot and a half. And when our billing people saw that this year, they sent it out as a lot and a half to the one property. And if you look at your map, it's the one in orange that's on your attached map. And the gentleman who lives there came in and said he had a historical relationship with the district where he came in and met with an employee back in, I believe, 2005, who granted him an exception from the billing process and billed him as a single lot. When I saw, so he's basically asking for, he came to us and said, look, you've historically treated me as a lot. Why are you billing me for a lot and a half? And our issue was, that may be true, but we have next door neighbors who were being billed for a lot and a half, and this individual is being billed for a lot. He said one of the reasons was his lot was too small to be a lot of record. I asked our district engineer to say, okay, based on the county setbacks and so forth, how big of a house can you fit on lot 10 and lot 10 alone? And it met the minimums. Now, it's still a small lot, and the house may have to be configured differently than the individual had. He basically needed more property to put his particular house on it, and that's fine. I'm not questioning that. What I'm looking for, and what we're trying to be, is consistent in how we build similar properties. And when you have a situation like this where you have 3 properties being billed at a lot and a half and this individual being billed for a lot, it creates an inequity, especially when the neighbors talk to each other. And that's the situation we have here today. So technically what you have is an informal appeal of his assessment based on historic. And then we have an issue with, okay, what do we do with the adjoining neighbors who have a similar circumstance to what he has? And that's why it's before you today. I provided you with some additional information that the gentleman provided me, which was his original request back in 2005, a handwritten note from a district employee, which is attached, and then basically a sketch showing the lots in question and the maximum size property you could build on this particular lot 10.
Well, we have that particular issue, and then we have, if I read your last paragraph, to erase future confusion, the staff is seeking direction from the board to develop clear language that will address for billing purposes situations where a lot is legally joined with all or part of an adjoining lot.
We have several anomalies throughout the district where we have unique billing circumstances. I can think of one where you have one house sitting on 4 lots. It's a single-family house sitting on 4 lots, and we charge, what, four assessments for that particular lot?
No, he's a per acreage rate. We do have a residential per acreage rate.
Okay.
Pardon me?
We have a residential acreage rate. We have about 6 or 7 individuals that fall under that, where their homes are either close to 1 acre or 1 acre or above.
What is our current policy situation in this whole area? I'd like to discuss the whole scope first, and then we address the one particular appeal. John, do you have any background?
My understanding is this, sir, and I could be wrong. Where we have residential acreage, there is a separate rate for that. We honor that rate. Where, for example...
And we're on solid ground with that.
Yeah, we have a separate rate for that, yes.
Okay.
Sure. With respect to, let's say there are 3 lots together and 1 house on 3 lots. My understanding is we assess 1 lot as improved and the other 2 as unimproved.
Correct.
So, for example, the case before us here, there would be 1 lot improved and the half lot is unimproved. I believe would be the appropriate way to address that under existing methodology. So you wouldn't assess each of the lots as improved, even though the house may sit on more than 1 lot. The reason for that being the benefit issue. You know, when we talk about the district benefits, a single residence usually just receives single benefits no matter how many lots it sits on. So that's why we do that.
But we do have that. That's something that we didn't talk about, Mike, earlier. The additional portion of the lot that doesn't have a structure on it is assessed at unimproved rate. Is that correct? Okay.
And one of the questions is, sometimes it's not a half lot. Sometimes it's greater than a half lot. And then when you take part of an adjoining lot, you leave part of an adjoining lot that has to be paired up with the next property over.
Well, how precise are we when we calculate an assessment?
We can do that by the foot, can't we, Tanya? Remember the partial foot issue we talked about?
Okay. Do we base our rate then on a calculation?
We base our rate on whatever the legal description is of the property, whatever the county gives us. In this case, it's a lot and a half. So when we were looking at the other lots next to it, we happened to find that it was only being built at a lot. So there are some lots that we've seen that are 1.57, and our system said 1.5. But I mean, we've adjusted for that. I mean, we're small adjustments here and there, but typically, whatever the legal description is what we bill for.
Okay, Tanya, when you build that, did you build that as a improved lot and an unimproved lot?
Not in the lot and a half case. Not in any of those cases.
So
but
you build it as a lot and a half, all improved then?
All improved, yes. In this case, we did.
Because the house sits on both lots.
It sits on a lot and a half.
Yeah.
This is an exception.
No, wait a minute. You're not communicating there.
John didn't say that.
Well, we were talking about in general, but we're talking about this case.
Okay.
This case, they were billed for, the half lot was billed for a half of an improved rate.
And the structure sits on that? Partly on that?
Yes.
Yes.
And see, that's part of what we want to do is try to clear up some of these issues. And there are other issues that we have where we have property that adjoins at the rear of properties. In other words, you got a house that sits on the front, and then you got an adjoining lot in the rear. That's the one up on Columbus, I believe.
Yeah,
we've got several oddities that we want to try to get some direction on.
This is far-reaching than this one lot.
Yes.
This has got implications all over the district. And I've dug into it, and as a matter of fact, I called Mr. McClure and asked him if I could file a Form B-8 because the gentleman in question is a friend of mine, and I thought it was maybe a conflict of interest in order to even vote on this. If it comes to a vote, he told me I wasn't able to do that. So because I've got some reservations as to this whole thing and the way it transpired. I think the biggest problem was, let me go back. Originally, when this lot was bought, it was purchased from the district, and it was purchased, and the description said that it is Lot 10 in the east half of Lot 11 in Block 4740 of Sunny Lake Estates, Unit 15. The special warranty deed that was issued at that time had a number that was a parcel ID number that was different than parcel ID numbers that I've seen before. It had 4 extra digits on it. It ended with 0100, which is Lot 10, and then it said /0110. And I don't know if our system accepts those last 4 digits, but that clearly identifies that as a lot and a half, the original parcel ID off the special deed. And then, according to what I can see, the lot and a half assessments were paid for a few years, and then after the house was built, I believe the gentleman went to the district and said, look, if I wanted to build my house that's already on that lot on the original platted property. Now remember, he bought it as a lot and a half, and it was already size big enough to put that. If I would have wanted to put my house on that lot, the lot wouldn't have been big enough, and he's correct in that regard, although the lot was big enough for the 1,600 square foot in the preserve. And where we really get into this problem was when Mick Grosh, I guess it was, allowed some relief on the taxes, or the assessments on this thing, and that opened up the whole can of worms, because he wasn't authorized to do it, he shouldn't have done it, and we wouldn't be sitting here arguing this thing today. It's a problem, and I don't know if we got a formal request for review on this thing. I didn't see any letter, any notice or anything like that, or was it informal? You said informal.
He came to Miss Candiday or her people and basically said, "Here's the background," and we took it as an appeal.
I don't want to lose a friend, but I do think that he's really fortunate. He got a good deal on this lot. He put his house right in the middle of both those lots, and it's a great location. But it's a lot and a half, and the one on the right pays a lot and a half assessment. The one on the other side pays a lot and a half assessments, and besides that, we've got property all over this district that this particular situation is going to affect one way or the other, I think. So, I don't think the argument that the gentleman brought to the district, I don't even know why they listened to this and agreed to that argument, because that lot was never the size of the original plot after the gentleman bought it. It was a lot and a half, plenty big enough to put the house on, so on and so forth. I would have preferred if this had been handled across the street, we wouldn't even be sitting here today. I don't guess it could have happened.
Well, unfortunately, what he's saying is, you billed me improperly because I've historically paid for a lot. Now you're billing me for a lot and a half. And the appeal on an administrative decision, I don't know where else it would come except to the board, in the absence of a situation where you have a formalized appeal process, and we do not have one.
Well,
we've had so very few over the years. This
was paid for a lot and a half for several years, and then back in on the history of the property, it was reduced in I think everybody else's assessments went up in let's see, what year was that? That year was it was reduced. It was reduced in 2005 by $201, and everybody else's went up. And then in 2006, it was reduced by $105. 2007, it was the county collected the taxes, and it was $881, which is the right number. 2008, it went back to $713, which is a one lot price. So historically, it's been all over the place of what.
Those numbers don't jive with the Grosh letter. Grosh letter is 2005, I believe.
There's no date on it. As far as I can
It's 2005.
It's on the envelope. Second page.
I have a question on this.
Okay.
Is he also billed as a half lot on the golf course, so he would be paying half the additional fee because it's on the golf course too?
Yes.
Okay. John, if I understood what you said a few minutes ago, that if you take it back to benefit, that would solve a lot of the problems in this type of lot, would it not? So he's got one benefit for a lot, or for a lot and a half. He's got one benefit, and you'd have one benefit for being on the golf course, and then a half a lot with unimproved.
I think you may have misunderstood what I was saying. We don't call them benefit for this, benefit for that. My point was, if you're a resident out here, if you actually have a physical structure, the benefits you receive are typically different from a vacant lot. For instance, the patrols, when they come by, they're looking at your house. You don't look at a vacant lot so much. You look and see the integrity of the house. We no longer administer fire protection, but again, that was another issue there. And if you're a resident here, you typically use the recreational amenities more than if you're a non-resident, even though you may be entitled as a owner of a lot, but not living here. The point I'm trying to make is this: that for a single house, you receive certain benefits for improved property. And if that improved property encompasses more than one lot, it's still a single house. So the fairness of imposing the improved lot against one of the lots, and then the remainder of the lots, although under your ownership, is unimproved. And I thought we had done that in the past based on our prior discussions, but that typically would result in a fairness that would, if you had multiple lot ownerships and built a larger structure, you're still paying for those lots, but you're not paying, the full improved rate, which seems fair, I would think.
And that's the way I had understood you. I just didn't get it out that way, I guess.
Okay.
Should we have, I've got the background on the appeal committee, I guess you'd call it, which is gone by the boards. Should we reinstitute that?
That, sir, will be within the board's discretion. I think what
That's
really...
That's a fair question.
Yes, I understand the question. What I was going to say, there are options. One of the options would be to employ a process similar to what the county employs, which is to employ a special magistrate. There are pros and cons of that. In my opinion, the major con to that would be when you apply throughout the county, wherever you apply for folks to respond to that, they're not really familiar with the district. And the district is a unique animal, and the things that we do out here are very unique. So the appeals committee, to me, has a certain appeal to it. In the past, that has been comprised of 2 board members and someone from the fiscal office of the district to sit on that committee. It would obviously be a sunshine committee, and then report to the board. The board takes the final action on the committee's recommendation. So if we wish to reinstitute that, or really I would say look at the bigger picture and have formal procedures where the committee would be appointed each year by the board, if that's the route you choose to go, then the board would just simply each year nominate the committee or comprise the committee, and then that would be the committee for that year, and then do the same thing each year.
Well, I would think we'd want to keep this in the house. I don't see magistrate.
Just options.
I don't think a magistrate would dig out enough relevant material to really make a decent judgment on it.
So that's another action that we have to contemplate, whether or not we're going to take that. Okay.
And if I could recommend, just this one thing, I would think we really need a formal process in which we notify the property owners of their proposed assessment, much like the trim notice, give them an opportunity to challenge that, and then after a certain point, the rolls are final and we proceed.
That would take a second mailing. That would be an additional mailing. We'd have to send out a estimate of what the assessment's going to be every year early on, so that they can appeal if they need to.
Yes, sir.
So, what would that cost, Mike?
What do you figure? $1 a bill? By the time we process them and do $1.50 a bill, 10,000, 15, 20. That's I don't have you a good number, but we have 12,000 properties.
Why don't you just send it out to any properties that hadn't changed?
Len, excuse me. We have a procedure here. You'll get your shot.
Well, it seems like overreach to me. If we got one problem in 2 years here, and all of a sudden we're going to impact a whole
I'm just telling you, as an attorney, if you're asking me about due process, I'm telling you what due process is.
Thank you.
Simply put,
it's a fair matter to consider. We don't have to, we don't have to implement it, but it's not something that we should just let fly. Do we, in an appeal situation, we have to have a separate, a second or first mailing? I don't think.
Well, that's the whole point. We've already mailed everything.
Yeah, I'm not talking about now, but I'm talking about in the future.
I'm saying in the future, if we're going to develop a process, we need to have a complete process by policy of what we're going to do.
All right.
That's what I'm trying to get across.
Perhaps we should structure a proposed process and let this board consider that.
Right.
So let's get back to the issue of clarity. What you're looking for is a clear policy regarding this particular situation, right, in terms of more than one lot.
We are. And I would also recommend, in addition to developing the policy for the appeals or notifications, et cetera, we also have some clear policy about how the properties will be assessed. If that's not in writing, it should be in writing.
Right.
Okay. Well, again, we've got two situations here. We've got this one particular case, and then we get the overall. Let's address this particular case. Do you guys have any other comments on this case at this time?
The only comment I'd like to make is that the other three property owners, when they purchased a lot, they purchased it as a lot and a half. They knew what they were buying. This particular individual received a lot and a half, but was with the understanding that it was a single lot. He also had a verbal agreement, or somewhat of a written agreement, with that it would be billed that way, and probably would continue to be billed that way if it wouldn't have been for the county 1 year doing their thing. So I guess the problem I have is this gentleman has an agreement, and it's been in place for, 8 years or 9 years or whatever. And, I guess I'd have a hard time going back and saying, sorry, I guess. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Wait a minute, Kurt, you're wrong. He originally was paying for a lot and a half.
There's historical numbers that show that it's saying during a series of years he was paid for more than one lot, and then when he appealed it and got this Mick Grosh thing, and when it was purchased as a lot and a half, so he well understood he was buying a lot and a half. You want to look at the special warranty deed, it shows it.
Yeah, but who originally paid for a lot and a half? Was it him?
He was.
Yeah, he bought it from the district as a lot and a half. It describes it.
But you said previous.
No, I said after that. After he bought the lot, he paid in certain years for more than one lot in his assessments.
All right. Well,
and then it went all over the place after he got the reductions. But remember what I said. Irregardless, this implication, if we give relief here, we got properties all over this district that need to be looked at, and if one gets relief, I say everybody has to. I mean,
well, that's your your interpretation of it.
I want to ask. I just asked John. I just asked John what his thoughts are on that.
Well, my thoughts are if you don't apply all the properties equally, you're subject to a charge of discriminatory action on the basis of. I mean, like you said, you got on both sides. You got a lot and a half, and they're all assessed a lot and a half.
Well, it's not quite that simple because we have documentation that this gentleman has relief. Why don't we stop here and hear from Mr. Roberts, because he needs to comment and make his case on this. Len, do you want to come up and identify yourself, please?
First off, I'd just like to say that...
Len, excuse me, for the record, would you state your name?
I'm Leonard Roberts, and I live on 5046 Angelo Circle. Been here almost 10 years, and I live, well, is there anything else I need to say before we go?
No, thank you.
Okay, before I get going here, I'd like to say, for those who don't know me, that I'm somewhat of an animated person, and that's where I guess I get the nickname Leapin' Lenny, which I'm not affectionate about, but that's better being called anything else, which, could be worse. Anyway, the other thing I'd like to say before I get going here is, because I'm going to use the words you and you have, and when I do that, I'm referring to the district, Sun and Lake, or the administration in my mind. So when I say you did this, or I'm talking about the previous administration or whatever. I will give you a little bit of a background so I can hopefully clear up the discrepancies. In 2001, I came here. I had been coming here, by the way, real quickly, since 1979. First time I ever came here. My aunt lived here for years. Came here all throughout my life. Decided I was going to be retiring in about 4 or 5 years. Wanted to buy a lot before they were all gone. So that's what I was looking for. Went into the sales office. Was shown several lots. I preferred Angelo Circle. I was shown 2 lots in Angelo Circle. One was off of 10. I know exactly where it's at. It was for $20,500. And then there was this combination lot that, and when I say you're representative, because as pointed out by someone on the board, the lot belonged to Sun and Lake. So I'm assuming you can't sell the lot. Anybody can't sell it unless they're representing Sun and Lake. So your representative put forth that lot to me, okay, as a bargain. It's pretty cheap, and at the time I didn't know whether I was moving here when I retired or anywhere else. I just wanted a contingency plan. Maybe it's because of my background. But anyway, I bought the lot, and it was told to me at the time that Lot 10 was not a viable lot, and they had already, ahead of time, had changed the lots in this particular area and made it a lot and a half. And I might want to say that that's fine for a legal description, okay? But a car is a car. And you can have a smart car, which I personally wouldn't drive because it's too dangerous, or you can have a Cadillac. So just given a description of a piece of property, I don't think is sufficient enough. When I got here, and I will clarify, I bought that, and then I went home. I got mailings. So I get the description of what I thought I bought, and it said lot 10 and half of lot 11, and then it gave me an assessment every year. Well, I'm up in Kentucky, and so I pay my assessment because I don't want that lot to go away, okay? I get down here, I build on that lot in 2005. We finalized the house. I saw my assessment. I immediately went to the county tax appraiser, the assessor. And when I went to the county tax assessor, okay, I took documentation showing Angelo Circle, the lots on there, Mr. Wright's lot, other people's lots, my neighbor's lot, everything else. And I showed him, and I told him I was on the golf course, and he looked at that, and he said, "What's this to the right of the lot?" I said, "That's a cart path." He said, "Well, the golf course is a premium." And I said, "Well, I've only got 83 feet on." He said, "Well, the standard is 100. He said, "So, but we're not going to lower the assessment because you're still on the golf course." The cart path, he said, is actually something that they will tone down a lot for in their appraisal, okay? When they're assessing it, it's not as valuable. I said, "Well, look at all this frontage I got." He says, "We qualify that," and you can look at the tax records, they even put EXE on some properties. That's excess frontage. That's not a value as far as the county is concerned. Okay, well, with that, he lowered my assessment. I came back here, wrote the letter on August 29th, okay? And on August 29th, I went up and I met with, and I'm sorry, but I take exception, Mr. Wright, that you say a county of Sun and Lake employee gave me an exception. Was it the custodian, or would you clarify, please, for the audience, who gave me what the man's title was? I don't need his name.
It's Mick Roush, and I believe, I'm not sure what his title was.
Director of Development and Planning.
Okay, thank you. So the Director of Development and Planning. But he wasn't the only individual. The first individual I went to was the person sitting in your position. So I don't know of anybody higher. I just didn't have anywhere that I could go higher. So I was dealing with those two people. And after months, because August 29th is the date of my letter, you might not have a date on the handwritten note back from the Director of Plans and Development. But I offered you a chance.
Glenn, it's November 21, 2005.
Okay, thank you. That's from the envelope, okay? So at that time, after months of deliberation and him going over that thing, he came to the same conclusion that you could not build on Lot 10 alone, considering the easements, considering the setbacks, and considering the requirement of the square footage that does not include lanais, does not include front porches, does not include the garage, and then you've got to stick the garage on that facility, and you've got requirements for pitch of roof, everything else. And I don't think anybody in here, anybody of the board, or you, or any of the audience would say it would be acceptable to put the foundation of a house 7.5 feet from that cart path coming off of the green. So I think that's kind of ridiculous in the first place. And I can't see that the Architectural Committee or the Architectural Review Board for the Preserve voting on that and allowing that to happen. So with that, I'd like to say that, number one, I was granted an exception. And if you read his exact words, he said in there on the third sentence, "We have not done this for any others, but felt in this case an exception was required." And the adjective is was, not should, could, would. It's was. That's pretty emphatic. And I don't think he did that just by what happened, which I think your engineer scribbled a few things like somebody did on a piece of paper and came up with that. I mean, that was a little bit of an insult, I felt, okay? Now, to address Mr. Halbeck's concern of once I did realize what I was really paying for, okay, like I said, I only paid those assessments prior to my moving here and realizing what I was really being charged with. Because I didn't know. I looked at the description. That's what I was told I was buying. And when they told me how much it was, I assumed that was fair. I didn't have any other properties to compare it. I didn't have a neighbor to ask what you're paying, which I did later on when the house was built. So in any event, what happened is in 2005, and I've got the paperwork here, and I'll gladly give a copy to the lawyer, the board, or anybody else. that assessment, which Mr. Halbach said went down in 2005, I'll tell you why it went down, because when it was billed improperly, not at the decision that was made by the district, okay? And I assume the proper employees, the manager, the director of planning and development, whatever.
Len, excuse me, you said it was billed improperly.
Yes.
Can you clarify that?
Yeah, sure. I don't, I've got it here. In 2005, I think what happened is when they billed it in 2005 originally, they billed for 568, okay, and we ended up paying 379 when they adjusted it to one lot, which was the direction they were under at the time.
Did you appeal that first price? Did you appeal the first price?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you appealed that, so that
I went up there, sure, it's right here, and I said, this has been billed improperly.
Okay.
It's not billed according to the agreement, and it wasn't a gentleman's agreement, it was an agreement that was put in writing, and it wasn't billed properly. And what happened, shockingly to me, again, in 2006. In 2006, I've got that here, too, okay? Here it comes again, and it's billed again at a lot and a half. I appealed it, and they reduced it again. And there's notes on here talking about how it had to go back. Mick Gross, the Director of Planning and Development, had to reiterate to the person that was billing, no, it's billed as a lot. As to what happened in 2007, you all remember, or I've got a copy of it here, it went through Charles R. Bryan, the county tax collector. Sun and Lake went through them. So whatever was put in for the third year in a row, wrongly, at a lot and a half, when we caught that, when it came through, we once again went right up to the district. The district said, okay, we see our error, we billed it wrong, and that's when $881, Mr. Halbach. And because we were under that, and the council can attest to this, I think, I would request formally right now that the district give me credit for that overpayment because I was under the different, assessment at that time. So that's a formal request, and thank you. So if you look at it, there are no differences. For 9 straight years, I've been billed as a single lot. Ever since that house went on there, 9 straight years. And I feel that the only thing I'm asking is that the district, you, honor the commitment, that the decision that was made by the administration for the district at that time. And now I'll say another little thing. I'd like to clarify something because it seems to be, that, and maybe this will help you all, and this is why I'm going to tell you this, in your decision. If you look at those lots you're looking at, it's up on the board right there for the audience. If you look at those, it starts on the right with lot 7, and it ends on the left with lot 12. As to the appealing to the attorney and saying, how can we differentiate? Well, listen, apples are apples and oranges are oranges. And I don't care what you give for a description. You can put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig, okay? So what I'm trying to tell you is if you look closely at that, if you went over there, you'd see why the developer, in conjunction with the owner, which was Sun and Lake, I believe, for the rest of them at the time, the reason those things were divided, they were, and I think Mr. Halbach had the question, why would they ever take 6 lots and turn them into 4? Well, I'll tell you why. Because lot 8, you'd never ever sell that. And if you go over there and you look at it and stand there and listen, you'll think there's a creek nearby because there is a huge, huge storm drain under there. And when that drain goes over to the next street, which is on that map, if you go over there, you'll find Sun and Lake has it roped off right now so that your lawn equipment and your stuff doesn't drop down in the sinkhole that's surrounding the one on the other Belmar, okay? So what happened was they determined, I'm sure, because the developer knows what they can build on, and they looked at that and they said, you know what? We're never going to be able to sell lot 8. They looked at lot 10, and they said, we probably can't build on this lot. They looked at lot 11. Lot 11 in itself, by its own, is probably one of the smallest properties on Angelo Circle. On the golf course, it is only 77 feet itself. So when you ask, is it fair for me to be billed as one lot? Think about this. I have less on the golf course than anybody sitting here, including Mr. Wright, anybody on the board or anybody else, less on the golf course, and you're about to propose that you reverse a decision made by you in the past, the administration, and charge me 50% more for 83 feet, while you all have a minimum of 100, and in some cases, some of you on this board have more than almost double what I have on the golf course, and your single lot in total square footage is probably more square footage than my two alleged lots. In other words, 10 and a half of 11. So just because it's called a lot doesn't mean it's worth anything. And I think at one time that was supposed to be part of the preserve. In other words, they never thought they'd build on that. And so then the developer put those together the way they did. And if you think it's fair, you look at all 4 lots now. Look at the 4 lots. You'll find that the man on the left, my neighbor, Ron, okay, he has his lot 12, his original lot, is a full lot in every respect. 100 by 125. In fact, he's got a few more square feet on one side. His attachment, when they got a lot 11, okay, on the back it was 77 feet. He got the preponderance of it. He got 42 and I got 35. It sounds like I'm getting ripped again. Then you look at the Jason Harnick's house, you'll find that his lot, which is lot 9, is once again a complete full-size lot. And then he ends up with 57 more feet. So he's got 157 feet on the golf course. My other neighbor's got 142 feet on the golf course, and I've got 83 feet on.
Yeah, well, Len.
Yes.
I think we're getting away from the basic issue here, but let me ask you one question, then I'll open it.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No problem. The county has been, since your last appeal, and they revert. You said they lowered it twice, but the county billing since that time has been consistent.
I believe it has, hasn't the county?
I think they, according to what the lots are valued at that year, they haven't changed.
In other words, they haven't changed anything that would warrant your returning to the county for an appeal. Okay.
No.
Well, that's fair enough. I think we have the whole picture. Is there any questions?
Has the board got any questions for me?
Well, that's what I'm asking right now. Okay, is there any final thought?
Well, like I say, my only final thought is that it just feels like I feel like I have, for some reason, been picked on, and I really truly mean that, because I've got another piece of stuff that I can present to you.
Well, let's. I don't think you have been picked on, but it's a problem, and we recognize it, and you recognize it, so we're going to have to make a decision here.
Okay.
So I was asking for any summary point that you may want to make.
Well, the only thing is that I feel that the district should honor their commitment. The commitment.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Dick?
Yes.
Yeah. You've built a house on both lots, right?
I had to build the house on both lots. I needed that to be able to position it.
Now, I understand that. Okay. If you didn't have that other half lot,
right,
you wouldn't have been able to build that house, would you?
Sir, I would not have been able to build that house, and I would not have been able to build any house. And I hope I can answer your question this way. If you go to Fooch, if you go to J.D. Parker, you go to Hornick, or you go to Tommy James, and ask them for any house that's 1,600 square feet with a double-car garage, and then take the actual dimensions of Lot 10, go from the easements and the setbacks, and see if you can position a house on it. Because I don't know if you know, but when you say the square footage...
Sir, I understand building houses.
Okay.
I've built several homes myself, okay? All right?
Any other questions?
You ended up with that other half lot.
Yes.
You end up building a very nice home on both lots.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
And you have neighbors that are paying for a lot and a half assessments.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I certainly would have...
Don't you feel that you should be paying the same as they are?
No, not at all.
Why? Why not?
Because they are benefiting from a lot and a half. They knew when they bought it they were buying a lot and a half. They have been paying the assessments.
You were paying for a lot and a half when you bought it.
Once my house went on there, I've never paid for a lot and a half. Once I built.
But you bought a lot and a half.
What?
You bought a lot and a half, and you paid assessments on a lot and a half.
Sir, I was sold by you, the district. I was sold a lot, and that's exactly the way it was pitched to me. It was pitched as a lot, not a lot and a half.
But you were getting billed, and you paid for several years for a lot and a half assessments, and you paid them.
That's right, because I was up in Kentucky, didn't know what I was paying for. I thought that was an assessment based. The description was lot 10, half of lot other. I was assuming I was paying for a lot. That was a wrong assumption on my part.
That's right.
Paying for a lot and half in my mind. I was not.
I feel sorry for you. Okay, I really do, but. I have to say that I don't feel it's fair to other people that have lots and a half that one person should get a break and they don't. Okay? That's my feeling.
All right, let's wrap it up and bring it back to the board, okay?
Over here.
Well, and we're gonna have a final discussion here, and then we'll decide.
Okay.
Are there any final comments from the board? Okay, I'm going to ask for a vote on this by the board to approve this exemption. So a yes vote will be to grant Mr. Roberts' appeal, and no vote will be to deny his appeal. John, am I on target on that?
Well, that's your motion. We need a second on that, and then it's a matter before the board.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, now we have to have discussion?
Yes.
Full public discussion?
I'm sorry, yes, it's a board action.
Okay, we have board discussion first. I think we're probably tapped out on that.
I think I've made my case. I would have preferred that the district would have handled this. We wouldn't have been in this situation because I think they could have made the same decision, and I just don't. I feel bad about it even coming here, and for us to be dumped on like Mr. Roberts claims he was dumped on is not fair to this board.
Yeah. Okay, I have two basic facts that I'm recognizing here. Number one, the county has been consistent in reducing their they don't call it assessment, tax on that, and they've been consistent ever since. And secondly, we have a formal exemption by a recognized official of this district in 2005. So those are two facts. And
did you say that the county reduced his?
He had said he'd gone to the county twice to object to the original tax on his property, and it was reduced twice. And since that final discussion with the county, they have been consistent in their billing at the lower rate. Am I correct in that?
Can you confirm that the county's reduced it twice based upon the fact that the frontage doesn't make any difference? I never heard of that.
When I went there, like I described, okay, and I met at that time with the assessor. Okay. When I met with the assessor, okay, like I told you, I showed him, and he acknowledged and told me that in other words, he had just assessed it blanket from description. Okay, when he saw it and realized it was a golf course lot, and it only had the footage that it had, the 83 feet. I didn't get additional, like my neighbor, or like all three of the other incidences, all received additional. I did not. I mean, I didn't even get to 100 feet on lineage, okay? So he said, okay, I can see that. That looks like it should be 1. He said, this cart path even reduces the value. And when I brought to his attention I had 150 some odd feet on the front, he says, we call that excess frontage.
Well, so Mr. Halbeck's question, Len, was
the question
is that documented?
Yeah, the question I've got, if I can go to the county and look at your billing history, I can see where in a certain time frame that was reduced from one year to the next.
You should be able to.
I've been on there looking at some of this, but I haven't seen that. It didn't jump up at me. So well, you're making you said it was so, and that's what Mr. Miller is basing some of his decision on, and I'm not too sure that's correct. But if you say it is, I'll have to take your word for it.
But be careful. We've had a lot of reductions for over the years, so you can't really
because of the formulation, right?
Yeah. If I could just very briefly, sir, I'm not arguing for or against, but I think the board needs to focus too on our assessments are based on benefits. And counties based on ad valorem, meaning based on the value of the lot. And as I understood what Mr. Roberts said, he said that when he spoke to the appraiser, he was concerned that his value was affected by the cart path. That was one of the things.
Yeah, he said.
And the other apparently was the amount of the actual golf course frontage. So he made that determination based on if there was a reduction, and I'm not saying it was or wasn't, but that would be based on valuation, not on benefit received, which is the only methodology the district employs. So,
all right. Do we have any further comments? So a yes vote will be to grant Mr. Roberts' appeal. A no vote will be deny it. Kayla, would you? Public discussion.
Tom Costy, resident. Comment was made earlier that a house could not reasonably be situated on that lot. I have the same situation, only in reverse. I have 79 feet of frontage. Most of you know and have seen my house and see how it sits. I have 79 feet of frontage and 144 feet of back property line. The county is billing me extra for my extra wide lot, which normally in this area are 100 feet. But in my case, I've got 78 feet of frontage, or 79 feet, and 144 in the back. So I'm paying extra for that. Secondly, my house is approximately the same size as Mr. Roberts, and we had to strategically place my house on that lot so that it is situated within the required setbacks, which is 7.5 feet from each of the side property lines, and the corners of my front foundation are within 7.5 feet of the side property line. My back pool cage is within the required 10 feet setback from the back property line. My house, again, is approximately the same size, which is probably, 600 or 800 square feet larger than what the minimum size house is in the preserve on the golf course. So I just, so that you know, it would not have been, I believe it would, this house, I believe, is somewhat maybe 62 feet wide, Mr. Roberts. And it's sitting on a house that's on a lot that's got 80-some feet of back property with, I think it would reasonably have been possible to put that house on that single lot. Thank you.
It's 48 feet, so.
All right, please,
At the back, but it's much wider at the front.
All right.
And that's what I faced as well. I had to move my house around and situate it strategically on that lot so that it would fit.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any other public comment? Is there any final board comment? Now, can we please call the roll?
A no vote is to turn it down.
No. That's right. A yes vote is to
Grant it.
grant the appeal, a no vote is to turn down the appeal. Kayla, go ahead.
Supervisor McCullough?
Yes.
Supervisor Halbig?
No.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Holbert?
No.
President Miller?
Yes. Commissioner, are there any comments that you would like to make today? Not requiring, just.
I'll give you an update on the EMS issues.
I thought maybe that was it. Good.
I had staff to make a snap.
I think you could.
I don't know, maybe are y'all aware where we are now? At all?
Yeah, we are. You come with good news.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. Here's 4 copies.
We need one for the record too, Ronnie, if you could. Mr. Bond, make sure that we have one over here for the record.
You can have
you get that one. Well, before you go.
Just to... Do we need to wait on the other gentleman? For the record, my name's Ron Hanley. I'm the county commissioner for this district. This is a quick update on where we are with the EMS building. We've gone round and round trying to find properties that would work. We had an appraisal done on a piece on the frontage road, and we couldn't find anything to swap out with the district of equal value. So then we went back to the hospital, sat down with the hospital folks, and we've now come up with a plan that I personally think is a much better site, and it is on Sunny Lakes Boulevard. And if you have the map, it's right directly across from the big portion of the hospital there. What we're going to do, and Mr. Griffin can help me with this, he is in the process of trying to get an environmental sign-off from Swift Mud. Correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, to give up 33 acres that the county owns, we're going to let the hospital, we're going to mitigate that piece of property so that the hospital then can abandon a portion of their property, which is off of Doctor's Road there behind their parking lot, where the trees are shown on the well, the way I'm looking at it, on the top right-hand corner. And that's going to allow the hospital then to use that, which is at that present time is protected as wetland or as a retention area. They can clear that and enlarge their parking lot, and in exchange we're going to mitigate the county property as wetland reserve area to mitigate for the hospital. In return, the hospital is then going to give the county this small piece of property that fronts on Sunny Lakes Boulevard. And they're also going to give us, from what I understand, or I don't know if that's them or the improvement district, is going to give us a curb cut so that the ambulance can come in and out on Sunny Lakes Boulevard, and also we will access the building from the Arvida, which is the road that goes around the hospital. So it's going to give the ambulance a way to pull straight in, park in an emergency. They can run right out on Sunny Lakes Boulevard and go to the accident. Much more practical way to approach it. It gives a good recognition there for the improvement district. Everybody knows where it is. If the sheriff decides to put a deputy there and have a patrol car there, it's much more obvious to the folks. It just seems like a much better fit. So we are moving forward. It's moving at everything that we do in government at a snail's pace, but nevertheless, that's where we are today, and hopefully
I don't know how long we're going to wait on Swift Mud. I mean, that's sort of the hold up right now. There doesn't appear to be any big issues, so it's just a matter of going through the bureaucracy of it all.
Well, look, on behalf of the board, I want to thank you for your efforts in this. It's been a long road.
It's been a real chore.
Yeah, I bet it has. We've been in neutral so long, we were thinking of ways to spend that $100,000.
No, we've got money sitting there waiting to spend, so we just need to.
So it's budgeted this is budgeted in this
as soon as we get it cleared, we're going to.
Okay, well, again, thanks for your effort and your colleagues as well.
Any other questions that I can attempt? Did I get that all right, Mike? Isn't that the way you understand it all?
Yes, sir. We are taking the lead in getting the easements released and placed so we can try to expedite it. And it was a three-party agreement. We actually all sat in a room together and came up with this idea between the hospital, the county staff.
Do you anticipate any now this is just kind of rhetorical, but do you anticipate any problems with Swift Mud getting this thing through?
Always. But
I mean, other than the usual bureaucratic?
I think there will be problems, and I think it'll be resolvable.
All right. That sounds good.
We have a contingency plan in place.
Okay.
I don't know that plan.
I don't either.
That's if we don't have enough land. There's enough coming through the achievement process. You have additional platted lots.
Okay. That aren't already in reserve,
that can be added to, if necessary, adjacent to other properties. It's just a sweetener if we need it.
Okay. Again, Ron, thanks very much. And happy Thanksgiving.
I got it.
Okay, add-on items, I don't think we have any. We've certainly been through petitions. Staff reports, starting with Community Services.
Tennille Drury Smith, Community Services Director. Greg, can you pull up the report, please?
Candy, why don't you run the machine for it?
As a recap, the Trick or Trot was very successful despite Mother Nature giving us a bit of an issue with the weather. It was quite chilly and very windy. Despite that, we still had over 400 people attend the festival portion, and we had over 600 runners participate in the Glow Run. As you can see, and it's probably hard to see it there, but we spent a little under $10,000. We brought in $12,227. So in special events, this is the first time besides the summer camps that we have actually profited. So I was very proud of our staff for keeping costs down, and everything worked out very well. We had lots of support from other staff, and it was another great event. Of course, tonight we have the Pilgrim Palooza at the clubhouse, and as of now we have over 300 people coming. Again, Mother Nature is not being kind today, but we hope that's not going to deter other people from coming out. I think it's safe to say that even with 300 people, it's a successful event. I believe Megan said between sponsorships and tickets sold, we brought in over $6,500 already. So it's going to hopefully be one of those annual events we continue to have for the years to come. The next event is the
Excuse me, what pot does that go into?
Oh, that's
the proceeds.
That's a golf course run, or the Island View Run event. The next event we have is the Teddy Bear Breakfast in Santa's Workshop, and that's December 6th. That, of course, is going to be more pertaining for the younger, the kids. And then that evening, we're going to have our first annual golf cart parade. I'm still looking for applications. Would appreciate anybody participating. We want this first year to be successful, and hopefully it grows from there. And we are also participating in the Sebring parade the night before. We're doing a float, so we haven't done that in several years, so we hope that will also bring some awareness.
Speak to the choir.
The Sebring Middle School Show Choir we'll be performing that evening at the reception we're holding after the golf cart parade for those who participate. They're a great group of kids. They're 8th grade, and it's an opportunity for them to come out and perform.
Will that be here or over at?
Over at the Island. It'll be on the lawn at the Island View.
Okay.
They're also
seen them. They're really, really good.
Yes, and actually they're going to be performing at the MGA Christmas dinner as well. So those of you may get to see them twice. Moving on, the playground. I don't know if anyone's been out there, but the playground is installed. The mulch is being put in, and the first playground was done yesterday. The new playground mulch is being installed today, and we hope to have the fencing and everything put up next week so that we can open it.
When is that Christmas dinner, MGA?
I believe it's the 14th, December 14th. I think I touched on this a little bit, but in lieu of doing community cleanup, because it seems like the past couple of cleanups we have done, they haven't been as productive in the past as they have been in the past because there's more people taking ownership and cleaning their community themselves. So we have started a community cleanup group. It was at the suggestion of one of the beautification committee members that maybe those people who are out there walking around and they're there anyway, that we provide supplies, a safety vest, picker-uppers, whatever they need to facilitate cleaning their area. So we're going to try it and see how it goes.
What's the status of the beautification committee?
We still meet on a monthly basis. Since I've been here, the membership has been the same. We've tried different avenues of promoting new members, but we're still active. We still meet once a month, and I'm hoping.
I just don't see a lot of that or any of that. Do we promote it at all in the newsletter or occasionally, or?
Yes.
Just for, I used to be pretty active there, and it's sort of gotten away. And but there's still. Do you have projects that you're developing?
Well, because of we usually do a spring and a fall planting, but because of the upcoming changes in the landscaping, we haven't done anything since the first circle that we planted last spring. That was the last planting we did, and then aside from that, the cleanups is the other thing that we generally hold, and we're trying this cleanup committee to see. But we do still meet every month, and they still, I keep them abreast of the changes that are coming, and anything else that we can do, we do it. So,
what's the status of the various fee events, like the tennis, the patronage for the tennis and fitness club and pool and so forth? Are we gaining new members? What?
We always see an influx this time of year in membership. I know that a lot of golf members who renewed have opted to add the tennis and pickleball to their membership, whereas in year past they had not. I don't have the number. I didn't come with the numbers in front of me, so I don't have the exact numbers, but I know that we are an increase over last year.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I'd like to see what progress or lack thereof that we have in these various facilities. I know they're never going to pay for themselves, but it'd be nice to know that we have increased patronage and so forth.
Yes, and for example, fitness I know has gone up because Zumba has become very popular. We hold Zumba in here twice a week with instructors, and I know that's become popular. So I know that for sure, especially fitness.
That is
increasing.
Part of what particular program?
That's fitness. They have to have a fitness membership in order to participate.
Well, that means we have increased fitness memberships then, I hope.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
Of course, the annual New Year's Eve party will be held at Island View on New Year's Eve, and we're also going to have the fireworks again this year. We have that set and ready to go. And then something new that we're going to venture and see how it goes is a Sun and Lake community yard garage sale, what have you, whatever you'd like to call it. We are taking applications, and we're basically charging the permitting fee, the $5 fee that the county charges, and we will go get the permits on behalf. I will accumulate a map that has the locations of everyone who's registered for that day to be a part of the garage sale. The idea is to have the location here as a pickup location for the map, and then they can go out in the community, and then we'd advertise it, to bring people in.
We have certain areas that don't allow garage sales. Do they get a set up here or what?
Well, I mean, that's an option. The community center is available that day. If you choose to go that route, I can certainly, have them set up in here or in the grounds outside, if that's something that you would like me to do and offer as an option.
Anything? We're done?
Oh, the other thing, I don't know if you noticed a change in the e-blast this week.
In the what?
The email, the e-news. I changed to a different system because we constantly battle the size of the words and people having a hard time reading it. So we're trying this new system called Constant Contact. And it actually gives me great reports on how many emails are good, how many are bounced back, who clicks on what. So it's a very eye-opening experience as well. But I'm hoping that if any received it this week, that you notice there was a change in it. And it is easily readable, and I think it's easier to manage through. I think that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
report.
Mr. Griffin's got a brief report before we go to the written report.
Okay.
Good morning, Greg Griffin, Director of Public Works. A couple brief updates. First, the north entrance and maintenance yard permitting process. We sent the permit in, got a couple, our permit application in, got a couple RFIs or requests for additional information. We've responded to those, anticipate hearing back in the next few weeks. Hopefully we'll have permits mid to late December. We're already starting to prepare our bid documents. We plan to go to bid at the end of December or the first part of January. Hopefully we will have our responses back and be ready to start construction mid-February. That's a loose timeline, but that's what our target is right now.
I got a question. That DOT, is that a DOT truck that's been parked there for a month or so? I thought maybe that was part of the project till I saw the label on it. I don't know why he's parked there, and I don't know.
That great.
I would ask him to move it after a while. I thought he was going to do some dredging somewhere.
I don't know. I saw that great when we were doing some sidearm work, and I don't know who that belongs to. I don't know if it's DOT or the county.
That's DOT. They've been doing ditch work all along 27.
Okay. Probably just.
Park and
I don't think it's moved, did it?
I did notice that the ditch was clean along 27.
Yeah, working. Okay.
Second project to update you on is the.
Wait, Greg, before you go there, explain how the regulatory people tied the two projects together on a permitting standpoint.
Okay. Back to the north end drainage. The reason the north end drainage is tied to the maintenance yard is it's all in the same drainage basin. So when we made the modification, they wanted us to make one modification. That'll include the outfall structure on the pond on hole 2. That'll include the cleaning of the pond but adjacent to hole number 4. That'll include all the drainage modifications that are required to accommodate the water that's going to be pumped in from Miranda Homes, plus the restructuring of the actual pipe layout and culverts for that whole north entrance. So it's a pretty complex project. They asked us to submit one package with it in its entirety because, again, it does all fall from the same basin.
Is that going to delay approval on either one then?
I don't believe so. You know, we have had several pre-meetings with Water Management District. Gator and I have gone up there starting about a year and a half ago when we started discussions about possible designs, and we have kept them abridged to our designs along the way, and they've seen the modifications and the changes they've made it, and so far they've blessed every step of the way. The second thing I'd like to update you on is the conservation work that's been going on over on Turtle. Yesterday, or actually Monday, we wrapped up what we're going to do for the year in terms of handwork. We'll still do a little machine work. So far, we've had a pretty good response from folks in terms of the clearing. We did kill 2 rattlesnakes in there. Both were over 5 feet. So as people decide to wander off into the palmettos, please remind them that there are deadly creatures hanging out in them.
There's a large alligator over in 14.
Yeah. We're aware of that gator. He's about a 6-7 footer. So far, he hasn't posed any threat to anyone. The state will not remove them unless they show any signs of aggression.
Really?
Yeah. So
is that the criteria?
Well, I mean, it's so far traveled from pond to pond, and it's not causing.
I don't know. Maybe it seemed to me that was by far the biggest one I've seen in quite some time.
It's really not that big of an alligator.
He kind of moves around. I've actually watched him walk across the fairway behind my house, and it was the darndest thing. He's walking across the fairway, and there's 2 mottled ducks closer than me and Greg standing there watching him. And just couldn't get to a camera quick enough.
What does that tell you? Do you like other things besides ducks?
It's Florida. There are alligators everywhere.
Okay.
So,
tell them where the second rattlesnake was killed, because that's close to people's homes.
The second rattlesnake was killed about 5 feet off of the tee box on number 1, adjacent to the ladies' tee box, right in the palmettos, right there. So thinning it out will help deter them from hanging out in those areas. On another environmental note, one thing I want to make you aware of: last year we experimented with a regulatory growth inhibitor on the mistletoe, because several of our old growth oak trees are infested, and I think Mr. Bell can concur. We saw pretty good results out of that, especially when we got our spring bloom or flush from the trees. We're going to repeat that in the coming months. So if you see under the oak trees a bunch of mistletoe laying on the ground, you'll know what it is, and that'll also be the reason you'll see trucks and gators with lifts out there. That's all I've got. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, the tennis agreement with Welsh.
That has been executed. It's ready to go.
It's been signed?
Yes.
Okay. Would have been nice to be apprised of that. It's a big ticket item.
When the board approved it, Welch had already signed it. When the board approved it, we signed it and sent it back.
For some reason, that just sticks in my mind. Yeah, yes. Okay, Greg, that's it?
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, John, you're up.
Okay, sir. First, the litigation report has been provided to you, as well as the foreclosure report. Just a couple of comments on the litigation report. First, the motion for summary judgment that was put up by the Roper firm was denied on the basis of sovereign immunity. Mr. Gonzalez followed that up with a separate motion for summary judgment as to 2 of the defendants. I think what they're trying to do is just chip away as much as they can as to our potential exposure. These 2 defendants both indicated they did not rely on any statements made by any employee of the district, and in fact had minimal contact with the district regarding these matters, so I anticipate that motion has a very good chance of being granted. That still leaves other defendants who did in fact have conversations with district employees, and what the court does with that we'll see. The key thing I would like to point out is this offer of settlement that was made previously, in which the insurance group, the Roper firm, offered reimbursement of the $3,000 or whatever it was per lot to each of the people that had spent money as an offer of settlement. In other words, he's saying, look, we'll make you whole. You put this money thinking you were going to get it all paid off, but it was always owed in the first place, so we'll give you your money back for that. And they've refused that, wanting instead payment for the entire bond amount. I think that's very unreasonable, and I seriously doubt any court would approve that. but the attorney down in Miami has never been accused of being reasonable, and if he was, he'd never be convicted of it, based on his actions. But where we're at right now is this. Apparently, the sides have talked about a potential mediation, and apparently this attorney is looking at coming forward with a more reasonable settlement. But to me, that means he's still rejecting the $3,000 offered. That could have a very detrimental effect on his case because, number one, when you're offering to make the people whole for the losses they've suffered, which is what we're trying to do, A, and B, there's also the issue of attorney's fees that could be at play, a big issue. And so by rejecting this very reasonable offer of settlement and not being able to get a judgment that well exceeds that settlement could expose their clients to payment of attorney's fees for that we've had to expend to defend the matter. So we'll see where that plays out. And it's a long way from being done, but that's where we're at.
Has Mr. Severino been deposed?
Not yet, sir.
The last correspondence, and I guess I forgot, like I was telling Dick, you forget the things you want to forget and you remember the things you want to remember. This settlement agreement, I guess we talked about that before at the board meeting, and
it's been a while
we all
back.
agreed to it.
We did.
And they, of course, they turned it down. Would it make any sense for us to withdraw that settlement agreement completely? Just take it off the table?
That's the insurance
okay,
company.
here it is. You don't want it, so we're going to withdraw it.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't want to do that just because by leaving it on the table, we keep that attorney's fee issue in play. That's a very important deal. Number two, that...
Part of it, the attorney fee part of it?
Yes, sir. Oh, yes. But number two, a big part of that is, typically whenever something happens and you're covered by insurance, while you might think you're not at fault at all, the insurance company will settle whether you're at fault or not just to minimize their potential exposure. That's exactly what's going on here. That was from the insurance company. We really have no choice or say in the matter as to whether they accept that or not. So that's where that one's coming from. So that's my update on that litigation, which is clearly in the forefront of everyone's mind. The only other thing I would point out is Mr. Lim of Tangram is apparently seeking counsel. I believe you each got a copy of the letter of my response to him regarding his concerns and desire to make a bid protest. Where that's going, I can't say. But I will tell you that an attorney did contact me to state that he was contacted by Mr. Lim. And actually, I'll tell you who it was. It was Mr. Terry Lewis of the Association of Special Districts, who informed Mr. Lim that because he did act in a role of special counsel to the district on several occasions, he was conflicted from representing him against the district, but he did give me the heads up that Mr. Lim had called him. That was on Monday of this week. So apparently that would be after he had received my letter. So I don't think this one is over yet. I think we can expect more before it's completed. The only other thing I would update you on is, my associate David unfortunately got sick with some stomach bug, and we were working on the procedures and the policy for the sewer tap issue to bring back to you. So I don't have that for this meeting, but I'll try to have it for the next meeting. And as I understand your direction, you would like for us to draft something working with staff on a formalized appeal process and a formalized assessment process.
Yeah, we need to have clarity in both of these areas. So that would be. John, is it my impression or the level or the number of foreclosures seems fairly high to me? Are we seeing any improvement in that area? From your standpoint,
I'll let Mr. Wright respond to that if I could first, because I think that's more a staff question than it is a legal question.
Whatever.
Yes, sir. You are seeing some increased activity. If you remember back in a prior board meeting, you asked us to step up some of those foreclosure actions, which we were doing.
Well, that's good. That's on improved properties, then I take it.
Yes, and certain vacant properties.
Okay. So that increase is...
It's very strategic vacant properties. For example, there was some golf course frontage we talked about. There's some commercial properties. And I think there's a property adjacent to the Public Works facility we were interested in.
Oh, that's good. We'll see what that brings. John, anything else?
Nothing further, sir.
Mike, you're up.
I'll be brief. Commissioner Hanley basically briefed you on where we stand with the EMS building. We're going to make that as our priority to get those permits, or not permits, easements swapped and get that project moving. The second thing is I'd like some direction. I've sent on a meeting schedule for next year. This is something that'll be on the 19th agenda, but I always try to send it out at least a month ahead of time, so you folks can look at your schedule and tell me what's applicable, what's not, and what you'd like us to consider or not consider, so that we can draft the resolution and have it to you at the 19th meeting. I'm looking for input.
Okay. I sent a response on this. I don't think that this January 9th round robin in the afternoon date should be interfere with the meeting, in my opinion. And I think the conflict on the last day of the match play, February 13th, if it has to be, it needs to be readjusted by the MGA, because that could not, the last day of the match play, how many rounds are played? I don't think there's very many rounds at all played that last day. I don't know if it's flighted or how many, they could have that, they could move that to the afternoon as well, because, I mean, Kurt, you've played in that match play. How many rounds the final day is there normally? I mean, you got the winner and you got the winning matches that are played, so I don't know how many.
Yeah, but if you're part of it, you can't be in two places at the same time.
Well, I know that, but I said the MGA is just going to have to move that to the afternoon. I don't see why they couldn't, because I don't think there's that many matches played, or they can move the final match to another day or something, and surely find an opening rather than, I mean, the burden's always on the board to try to move the things around to accommodate them. I think...
I thought we changed that.
What?
I thought we changed that the burden is now on them.
Well, that's what it should be. But
That's what we're doing today, is discussing that.
Okay. I have one conflict in it. The May 22nd meeting, I'm going to be gone from the 18th of May till approximately the 10th of June. So, and there may not be that much business coming up in that meeting. I don't know. But I am going to be gone. My wife tells me.
I have one of those.
You have one of those, huh?
Yeah.
I have one of those conflicts too.
That's in our budget process, I believe, isn't it?
Well, that's usually when we around that time is when we release the budget.
Well, Larry would have other opportunities to participate, though, right? Budget process.
Yeah, and we didn't include any budget meetings because it's been our experience that y'all don't work your vacation schedules out till closer to the summertime.
Larry, you're out of there on the 18th, right?
Yeah, 18th to the 10th of June. It's the only conflict I've got with all this thing.
Is that something you need to have resolved, or what's
only one meeting you're missing?
It's only one meeting, and I don't have a problem missing the one meeting, but we're going north, and it's not feasible to come back.
Fair enough. The one meeting.
Sometimes it's good to miss one. This would have been a good one to miss.
You got a point.
Yeah, well, if you go by that standard, I could have missed the last 4 or 5. But
I wish I wouldn't have been here for this one.
I ask this every year. I'm not sure why we continue to have just one meeting in March. There doesn't seem any rhyme or reason to just go to one meeting, go back to 2 meetings. I think somebody...
Because you have historically not met the week of the member guest tournament.
God.
But we can certainly do it. It's up to you guys.
Well, I had several comments. The fact that we're not earning our money here by all these one a month meetings. So
I still say go to Wednesdays. It solves all your problems.
Yeah, well, goody for that.
Why not?
Well, we can We can make a call for a meeting if we have to, right? When is the member guest? What is the date?
It is the 25th through 28th.
25th to what?
March, which is a
27th would be your next meeting.
25th is a Wednesday, 28th is a Saturday.
So Monday would be the 30th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's leave it at that, and then if we see something, then we'll just have to.
If it starts stacking up, we can always have it. I would prefer if it starts stacking up, somebody makes everybody aware of it, and we do throw another meeting in there at some point.
Well, that's fair enough.
Because I don't like to come in there and have 25 resolutions to deal with.
All right. Well, we do that on that basis. Mike, you have anything else?
No, sir. Okay, so we're going to go with this schedule? Y'all good with this?
I guess.
No.
They're going to do it next meeting. Okay, we'll have it on the agenda. That's next meeting.
Tanya, thank you for the timely submission of the budget document. When I asked for the pie charts for the expenditures and category, you left out the revenue pie charts. Unless they're in a place I can't find, but I know that probably was an oversight, but I'd like to see both of those if we can next time. Revenues and expenditures. Okay.
Talking about the budget, I thought we budgeted $250,000 to repair the tennis courts, but I can't find it in there.
You did not. You deferred it till we got the bids. We had that discussion, and the board said, no, let's wait till we get the bids, and then we'll take it out of reserves.
Okey doke.
Yeah, well, reserves being reserves or contingency? Reserves.
Reserves.
Okay. All right, unfinished business? None. New business? No committee reports. We're on to public comments.
Naturally. Good morning. Rex Bond, resident of Sun Lake. A couple of things I'd like to let you know, whether you know or not at this time. We've changed our hours that you can operate golf carts here in the district. Some of these things, and I think it's important that the board review their minutes to be sure that they're correct, because sometimes, and I'm not blaming the staff, it's just the fact that I'm assuming that you're not reviewing them in the detail that you should. We had an item approved within those last several months that the operation of golf carts on design district roadways during the home or during the hours of sunset and sunrise, and to establish the requirement of equipment. Okay? All right. So we go ahead and we find that there's an article in the minutes that the current ordinance says you can drive a golf cart on district streets within a certain radius of golf course from sunrise to sunset. So we don't have to worry about that problem anymore, because we approve from sunrise to sunset, then we approve from sunset to sunrise. So we have a 24-hour period that you can operate your golf cart. You guys that want to go home late and after dark, we've taken care of that. Do any of you remember passing that? It's in the minutes. Then another local and
article that appeared in the newspaper. And I would have to fuss at maybe our publicity people a little bit. And there was a picture this past week in the newspaper. It says Sun and Lake Board of Supervisors President Dick Miller on the left side and board member Howard Humphreys look at the new War Veterans Monument at the Sun and Lake Golf Club. Well, I don't know which one of you guys are leaving, but Mr. Humphreys says that he is a board member.
Well, he didn't get it right, Rex, because it was Howard was there as MGA board member, and they didn't put the MGA in. So.
I understand, but a nice picture. In fact, I didn't even recognize either one of them. To tell you the truth.
That was probably good.
But anyhow, I wanted to be sure that we got that little bit of information in the minutes. Very important that I would hope that you will start spending some time now in preparation for the next landowners meeting, which will be probably within 60 days. January, sometime in January, I don't know just why. But we will have, I'm assuming we will, that the board will notify all of the folks that should be notified that we will have a meeting. I didn't get to the meeting last year, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, but I look forward to going to the one this year. The board has a lot of things to do, and the board is required to give a notice of the annual landowners meeting.
Rex, that's an excellent point, because we had practically nobody there at last year's board meeting, landowners meeting, and that's not right, and we need to highlight that. So I thank you for reminding us that Mike, we need to. Mike,
we're well aware of that now. And we've already had one ad in the newsletter. And as we get closer to the fourth Friday in January, there will be additional advertisement and newspaper.
And we'll use the email system as well, right?
But we are not planning on a direct mail piece.
Well, let's get out as much as we can on that.
I think you need to talk to your lawyer and be sure that a lot of people don't have a computer, and there's some have it and don't know how to use it. So we've got to get some other good notice, like a bulletin board or something, for the people to know. And if that's the only requirement, then fine. Might I say, too, I think that somewhere along the way we need to either lighten up the color or do something for the newsletter, because it's awfully hard for old people to read. I have a problem with it because with the color, and on top of that I'm colorblind too, but the colors kind of run together, and it's awfully hard to read that article. Of course, it might be that everybody's so anxious to read their water meter reading off of the water bill that this becomes secondary. But I just wanted to bring your attention to those two or three little important items about the newspaper.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from public comment? I'm going to bring it back to the board. Mike, I have one question, and it's appropriate with Commissioner Hanley here. We are really behind the eight ball in getting this entrance, this dollar store entrance down there with Tanglewood. It keeps limping along, and I don't know, Ron, if you're aware of this, but Mike, you might want to summarize that, because it should have been done a long time ago.
Mr. Gavarete is the lead on that because the county was the permitting agency that granted the access. And the last correspondence I had was the dollar store had not responded to the certified mail asking for a meeting. And Mr. Gavarete and I had a conversation, or an email exchange, I should say, about, well, why don't we just close off the one entrance, which is the easternmost entrance to Tanglewood's driveway. What's happening is people are pulling out of the front entrance of the dollar store, and there's a median there, so they're turning eastbound into the westbound lane. And he was going to run that, I think, by his attorney to see if they could actually do that. But we had reluctance by the dollar store people to meet with us, or to meet with him. He's asked for the meeting, and he's taking the lead on it.
So we're really nowhere yet, right? Is that correct?
Got to get them to the table.
Is that a situation, if they want to, they can stiff us on that?
What do you mean?
Well, just refuse to go along with any required improvement. It's the safety issues. That's why we got
that's
there.
We've had no accidents. I did ask Mr. Gavaretti to check his accident data, and they have not had an accident yet. So that may not be a very strong argument. And he was, I think he was going to talk to Mr. Macbeth about the ramifications of closing that entrance.
Okay. Board have any other?
Yeah, it is handy that Mr. Hanley's here. I've got one thing, and it's happened yesterday, and I think somebody at the district was asked about it, but streetlights on Schumacher, which is a county road and a county right-of-way, and I think those streetlights are probably county. As far as that's concerned, the lighting, they said, is inadequate along that strip where all those buildings are. There's one down at the far end of it, and then there's none for a long way, and it's real dark at night in that area. And one of the people that owned one of the businesses asked me, and I said, that's a county road and a county right-of-way, and Sun Lake doesn't have anything to do with it. And they may have called Sun Lake and asked them about it, but there is, the lighting's really very poor along there, so I don't know if you can do anything about it or take it to someone's attention, have them take a look at it.
I'll draw it out to you after the meeting, if I can.
All right. I hope everybody will have a joyous and happy Thanksgiving. So
hang on. Got one question. We've been doing all this clearing on Turtle Run, all this debris piling up. We're going to continue for the next couple of years. Should we be looking into a commercial mulching machine or something?
Those mulching machines, the tub grinders, are several $100,000. We typically pay around, I think it was $9,500 the last time he came in. We only do it once a year. Those guys travel, pretty big circuit. I think we piggyback off of the county contract as part of their emergency EOC plan. I couldn't recommend buying one because, again, our frequency of use.
I just was curious.
Wouldn't be.
Thanks.
Wouldn't be.
Yeah, if it ever catches fire, you'll be able to see it for a long, long way.
It's all about to go away.
Yeah.
Okay, we're done.